I want to ask you, Sophie, about culture and what the Renegades culture is. Culture, it's a bit of a sort of a buzzword, maybe an overused word, but describing it at the Renegades, you as captain, say Simon as coach and some of your big name players, what would be the Renegades culture?
It's a good question. I think we've probably been known over the years that we enjoy ourselves, the Renegades. And
well, Renegades, meant to.
Yeah, I think Helmo, what he brings to a team, it's pretty hard to articulate. His energy is it's contagious. He brings chaos to a group, but it's actually controlled chaos, and I think that actually brings out a lot of people's ability to withstand pressure. And he just backs people in. It always helps when you win games and everything. But I think even at the start of the season when we dropped the first couple, you could see that it was a bit different this year because everyone did just stay level and we did still enjoy each other's company and sort of valued each other's being in each other's space. So I think it's in a tournament like this, it can be pretty brutal in terms of the demand on players having 10 games in 3 or 4 weeks with travel. But if you work out ways to be able to really enjoy it when you're there with each other off the field, that comes on to the field. And you could really feel that this season. And it's not always, you always search for it. In any team you're in, you always search for that feeling when you're out in the middle. It's just good fun. There's a lot of smiles on the face. There's a lot of laughing. We might be under pressure, but there's still, girls are still smiling. And there's that feeling of just genuinely wanting each other to do well, which sometimes you don't get in teams, and you can't put a finger on why. But right now we're sort of running with that, and it's been quite enjoyable.
So Kirby and I spoke about the clip that we all watched of Simon Helmut in the rooms with you after a particular game, and you could tell just in his voice that this belief came over him, and he talked about how he could look in the eyes of all the players and you could see the belief, and it gave him this great optimism of what was possible. Can you take us into that particular discussion and whether you felt that, whether you sensed it, whether you'd spoken about it before Simon had spoke? Because it was quite powerful to actually watch that.
Yeah. Helmo, when he speaks, he has everyone in the room just hanging off their chair, just waiting for his next words. He's got this amazing ability to come up with the right words at the right time, and I think because he cares so much for each individual in that room, and he does so much for that club. He speaks with real emotion. And so when he spoke that afternoon, I think it was maybe a win against the Strikers, that second win of that weekend to get us 2-2. It was really powerful. I felt like we could all run through a brick wall after that. That's how he made us all feel. But yeah, it was just a really well timed speech that he made. He tends to do that really well.
I think when you talk about culture, you can't not talk about connection. And I think something that you are so widely regarded for doing really well, whether you speak to a Deandra Dotton, who's an international, you speak to Georgia Presswedge, who you share a Victorian change room with as well as a Renegades change room with, and they will all speak about your capacity to switch on and switch off and connect with them as individuals. To build a culture, you have to feel connected. And if Helmo is the master of the words at the right time, what do your actions look like as a leader that allows you to build such great connections in your team?
It's probably things that I don't even think about, to be honest. It's I think at the end of the day, like the biggest thing for me as a leader, it comes down to I just care. I just care about the players that are in those rooms. I care about that franchise, and I suppose that's probably the biggest thing that I come back to is how people are going, if they're okay, if they feel comfortable and ready to perform. And sometimes it's probably I care too much. That's
another fine line, isn't it?
It is. But I'm very lucky. Like there's some incredible leaders in that change room as well, and senior players. You've got Hayley Matthews, who's a World Cup captain, and you've got Georgia Wareham, who's coming into her own in that space in the Renegades colours, and even players like Nikki Fulton and Georgia Presswidge, like they just it's so natural in terms of getting a group together. So it's players like that just do those things without even thinking, and when it all comes together, it's every little bit counts. So yeah, I'm pretty lucky in that front.
I'm interested too in that we were talking a lot about fine lines today. The balance in cricket, there's a level of selfishness required to ensure that you perform. And then as a leader, it's such a selfless job. How do you, because your performances so far this season have been elite as well, and we haven't even touched on the quality of you with ball in hand and bat and the match-winning performances that you've had as skipper of this team. How do you find the balance, and maybe this is something Phoebe's learning about her game too, between being selfish enough to be ready to perform and win games for your team and selfless enough to understand where every player in your change room is at?
Yeah, I think I'm probably 3 or 4 years into it now, captaining at the Renegades, but I reflect and look back on maybe the first couple of years. I certainly didn't have that balance right, and I think my personality is to probably go over the top in terms of making sure everyone's okay. And that I probably slipped down a bit of a slide there, and my game and my health probably went with that. And I just thought that's what you need to do to be captain. You need to make sure everyone is A-OK every day, sort of thing. I used to have I can't believe I'm saying this, but I used to have a checklist of all our players, and I'd go down it like every night and just like either be a tick or a cross to like if I needed to catch up with them or if they're okay or not. Like it was just got to a point there. It was probably not sustainable. But I wouldn't have changed any of that. Like it was just a learning curve for me. And probably the expense of that was my performances, and I wasn't able to stay out on the park. But I think fast forward a couple of years, I think maybe I am finding that balance a little bit more in terms of being a leader, but also it's just as important to be able to perform and lead with actions out in the ground and to be out on the ground. That's probably a big thing as well, and not sitting in the stands.
I want to ask you about that with the knee reconstruction that you had. Unfortunately, that means a lot of time on the couch and a lot of time rehabilitating your knee, but also I'm sure plenty of self-reflection time. What did you learn, or what did you think during that time that's helped you come back, I would argue, a better cricketer now than you've potentially ever been?
There's a lot of sitting on the couch. There's a lot of doing nothing. But, it's sort of hard to list things that you've learnt in those couple of years where I was out. I think overall I've probably come out of it maybe a little bit more well-rounded in terms of just having the perspective of life. I think maybe when I was really lucky and sort of come out of school and straight into programs and straight into touring with Australia, and absolutely loved it. Like got to win a couple of World Cups really early, and I probably took that for granted, to be honest. Like I just thought it would play out like that for the rest of my career, and I suppose when it stops, you have to stop with it and just take a bit of time. And I had some amazing support through that time as well. And it was just, in a weird way, it was just really nice to be able to stay in the one spot for a while and reconnect with family and friends that I hadn't done for a few years there, where I suppose life got away from you a little bit and you tour, and probably makes me look at the game a little bit differently now.